The throne room of the Valkyrie Empire stretched for nearly a mile. Giant pillars of black stone rose toward a ceiling so high that clouds sometimes formed beneath it. Golden light poured through windows made of crystal harvested from dead stars. This was the heart of the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known. Emperor Malthius IX sat upon a throne carved from the bones of a space whale. His skin was pale blue, and his 4 eyes glowed with the cold light of his ancestors. He had ruled for 300 years, and in that time, he had added 62 species to his empire. Some had joined willingly. Most had not. It made no difference to him. Today, his High Admiralty stood before him. 12 admirals, each one responsible for a section of the empire that spanned half the galaxy. They wore armor made of living metal that shifted and changed with their moods. Right now, that metal was bright gold. They were pleased with themselves. "Speak," the Emperor commanded. Grand Admiral Zorath stepped forward. He was old even by Valkyrie standards, with scars on his face from 100 battles. His voice was deep and confident. "My Emperor, our scout fleets have completed their survey of the Orion Spur. We have found 17 habitable worlds, rich in minerals, perfect for colonization." The Emperor nodded slowly. The Orion Spur was a distant arm of the galaxy, far from the center of Valkyrie power. But the Empire was always hungry for new resources, new worlds, new subjects. "And what of the inhabitants?" Malthius asked. "Are there any species worth noting?" Zorath hesitated for just a moment. The other admirals noticed. They exchanged glances. "There is one species, my Emperor. They call themselves humans. They occupy approximately 30 star systems in that region." 30 systems. The Emperor's voice was flat. "That is nothing. A small territory for a small species." "Yes, my Emperor. They have only been traveling between stars for about 300 years. They are very young." Malthius waved a hand dismissively. "Then they will be easy to conquer. Add them to the list of species for annexation. We will bring them the gift of Valkyrie civilization, whether they want it or not." The admirals laughed. It was a practiced laugh, the kind that powerful beings use when they want to please someone more powerful than themselves. But Zorath did not laugh. His face remained serious. "My Emperor, there is a complication." The laughter stopped. Malthius leaned forward on his throne. His 4 eyes narrowed. "Explain." Zorath pulled out a small device and activated it. A hologram appeared in the center of the throne room. It showed a document, covered in symbols from 100 different languages. "This is a formal declaration from the Galactic Council," Zorath said. "It was issued 200 years ago, but it remains in effect. It concerns the humans and their territory." The Emperor stared at the hologram. The Galactic Council was a neutral body that existed mostly to facilitate trade and communication between different empires and species. They had no military power. They made suggestions, not demands. The Valkyrie Empire tolerated them because they were useful, not because they were important. "What does it say?" Malthius asked. Zorath took a deep breath. "It says, Terran space is hereby designated a restricted zone. Any vessel entering Terran territory without explicit consent will be considered hostile. Entry without consent guarantees death. This is not a threat. This is not a warning. This is physics." For a long moment, the throne room was silent. Then the Emperor began to laugh. It was not a pleasant sound. It echoed off the black stone pillars and filled the vast space like thunder. "Physics?" Malthius said between laughs. "They think they can threaten us with physics?" The other admirals began to laugh too. The tension broke like a wave against rocks. Soon the entire throne room was filled with the sound of their amusement. Only Zorath remained silent. "My Emperor," he said when the laughter finally died down, "I feel I must advise caution. The Galactic Council does not issue such warnings lightly. In the 12,000 years of our empire's history, they have only issued 3 such warnings. Each time, the species they warned about proved to be dangerous." "Dangerous?" Admiral Korath stepped forward. He was younger than Zorath, hungry for glory and recognition. "These humans have 30 systems. We have 400,000. They have been in space for 300 years. We have been conquering the galaxy for 12 millennia. What could they possibly do to us?" Several admirals nodded in agreement. The math was simple. The Valkyrie Empire was vast beyond measure. The humans were insignificant, but Zorath was not finished. There are stories, my emperor, rumors that have spread through the neutral zones, ships that enter human space and never return, entire fleets that vanish without a trace. 200 years ago, the Korvax hive sent 3,000 ships to conquer the humans. None of them ever came back. The Korvax hive no longer exists. The Korvax were insects, Korath said with contempt. Mindless drones following a mindless queen. They probably flew into a sun. More laughter from the admirals. But the Emperor had stopped laughing. He was staring at Zorath with an unreadable expression. You seem afraid, Grand Admiral, Malthius said softly. It was a dangerous accusation. In the Valkyrie Empire, fear was weakness, and weakness was death. Zorath straightened his spine. I am cautious, my Emperor. There is a difference. The Korvax were not weak. They were one of the most aggressive species in the galaxy. They had conquered dozens of worlds before they turned their attention to the humans. And they were destroyed. Completely. We do not know how. We do not know why. We only know that they are gone. The Emperor considered this for a long moment. Then he smiled. It was not a kind smile. Your caution is noted, Grand Admiral. But the Valkyrie Empire does not hide from young species with delusions of power. We do not bow to warnings from the Galactic Council. We are the masters of this galaxy, and we will prove it. He turned to Admiral Vorath, a middle-aged Valkyrie with cold, calculating eyes. Admiral Vorath, you will take the 9th Conquest Fleet into Terran space. 500 warships should be more than enough to bring these humans into the fold. Teach them what it means to face the might of the Valkyrie Empire. Vorath bowed deeply. It will be my honor, my Emperor. And Vorath, Malthius added, bring me their leaders in chains. I want to see the faces of these humans who think they can threaten us. As the admirals began to file out of the throne room, a light began to flash on Zorath's communication device. He looked at it and frowned. My Emperor, there is an incoming transmission. It is coming from Terran space. The room went quiet. Malthius raised an eyebrow. They are contacting us? How interesting. Put it through. The hologram projector flickered and changed. A new image appeared in the center of the throne room. It was a human. She was small by Valkyrie standards, barely 6 feet tall. Her skin was a warm brown color, and her dark hair was cut short. She wore a simple uniform, black with no decorations or medals. Her eyes were calm and steady as she looked around the throne room. My name is Elena Torres, she said. Her voice was clear and carried easily through the vast space. I am a diplomatic representative of the Terran Confederacy. I am speaking to you today because our sensors have detected your fleet massing near our borders. Admiral Korath snorted. Their sensors detected our fleet? Impossible. Our stealth technology is the finest in the galaxy, Elena interrupted. She smiled slightly. Yes, we know. We have studied your technology quite extensively. We detected your fleet 3 days ago. We know its exact size, composition, and destination. The admirals exchanged uneasy glances. No species had ever been able to detect Valkyrie ships in stealth mode. It was one of their greatest military advantages. Elena continued, I am not here to negotiate. I am not here to threaten. I am here to give you information, so that you can make an informed decision. How generous of you, Malthius said. His voice dripped with sarcasm. 200 years ago, the Korvax hive sent 3,000 ships into our territory. They did not return. 150 years ago, the 7th Dominion sent 1,200 ships. They did not return. 80 years ago, the merchant princes of Kalos sent 500 ships. They did not return. She paused to let this information sink in. In each case, we warned them. In each case, they did not listen. We are warning you now. Turn back your fleet. Do not enter Terran space. If you cross our border with hostile intent, you will die. All of you. This is not a threat. This is not propaganda. This is simply what will happen. Malthius stood from his throne. All 4 of his eyes were blazing with anger. You dare to threaten the Valkyrie Empire? You dare to speak to me this way? We have conquered 400 species. We have ruled this galaxy for 12,000 years. And you, a species barely out of your infancy, think you can frighten us with words? Elena's expression did not change. We are not trying to frighten you, Emperor Malthius. We are trying to save your lives. We take no pleasure in death. We do not seek conquest or glory. We simply wish to be left alone. But our territory is not negotiable. Our borders are not suggestions. If you cross them, you will face consequences that you cannot imagine. I have heard enough, Malthus snarled. Admiral Vorath, you will leave immediately. Destroy these arrogant creatures and bring me their world in ashes. Vorath bowed. As you command, my emperor. Elena watched this exchange with sad eyes. Very well. I have done what I came to do. I have given you the truth. What you do with it is your choice. She looked directly at Vorath. Admiral, I hope you have said goodbye to your family. You will not see them again. Enough, Malthus shouted. Cut the transmission. But before the technicians could react, Elena spoke one last time. Her voice was soft, almost gentle. We do not make threats, Emperor. We make promises, and we always keep our promises. The hologram flickered and disappeared. The throne room was silent. Admiral Korath was the first to speak. The arrogance of these creatures is astounding. They will learn their place soon enough, the other admirals murmured in agreement. But Zorath noticed that some of them looked less confident than before. The human woman had spoken with certainty, not the bluster of someone trying to intimidate, but the calm assurance of someone stating simple facts. It bothered him, but he said nothing. To speak against the Emperor's decision now would be seen as treason. And treason meant death. 3 days later, Admiral Vorath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. Around him, 500 warships of the 9th Conquest Fleet moved through space in perfect formation. Each ship was a masterpiece of Valkyrie engineering, armed with weapons that could crack planets and shields that could withstand nuclear fire. This was the finest military force in the galaxy. Vorath had led it to victory 17 times before. He had conquered civilizations, crushed rebellions, and brought entire species to their knees. He had never known defeat. And yet, as he stared at the stars ahead, he felt something he had not felt in centuries. It was a small thing, barely noticeable, but it was there, lurking in the back of his mind like a shadow. Doubt. The human woman's words kept echoing in his thoughts. The calm certainty in her eyes. The way she had known exactly where his fleet was, despite their best stealth technology. The history she had recited, the Korvax, the Seventh Dominion, the Merchant Princes, all gone, all destroyed. Admiral, his second-in-command, Captain Mothra, was looking at him with concern. Are you well? Vorath pushed the doubt aside. He was a Valkyrie admiral. He did not feel fear. He did not second-guess his emperor. I am fine, Captain. What is our status? We will reach the Terran border in 6 hours. All ships report ready for battle. Vorath nodded. Good. Maintain formation. And Captain, make sure all weapons are charged and ready. I want to be prepared for anything. Mothra hesitated. You expect resistance, Admiral. I expect nothing. But I prepare for everything. That is why I am still alive after 300 years of war. As the hours passed, the fleet drew closer to Terran space. Vorath studied everything they knew about the humans. It was not much. They had emerged from a single planet called Earth about 300 years ago. They had spread slowly, carefully, occupying only 30 systems. They did not trade much with other species. They did not participate in galactic politics. They simply existed, quiet and isolated in their small corner of the galaxy. It made no sense. A species with the ability to threaten empires should be expanding, conquering, making their presence known. But the humans seemed content to stay within their borders. They had no apparent ambition for power or territory, unless they were already powerful enough that they did not need to expand. Unless they had something that made their small territory more than enough. Vorath shook his head. He was thinking too much. The humans were probably bluffing. Their threats were probably just that, threats. Empty words designed to frighten away weak-willed species. The Valkyrie were not weak-willed. Admiral, Mothra said, we are approaching the border. Vorath looked at the main view screen. Ahead of them, space looked no different than it had for the past 6 hours. Stars burned in the distance. Nebulae glowed with soft colors. There was no visible line, no marker to indicate where Valkyrie space ended and Terran space began, but his instruments told him the truth. In 5 minutes, they would cross into Terran territory. All ships, Vorath announced over the fleet-wide communication channel, prepare for potential combat. We are entering hostile space. Stay alert and follow your training. Today, we bring another species into the Valkyrie Empire. For the glory of the Emperor, 500 ships responded as one. For the glory of the Emperor, the fleet crossed the border. For a moment, nothing happened. Space remained empty and silent. Vorath allowed himself a small smile. Perhaps the humans' threats really were just bluster. Perhaps this would be an easy conquest after all. Then the lights on the bridge flickered. What was that? Vorath demanded. Mothra checked her instruments. Her face went pale. Admiral, we have lost contact with the rest of the fleet. What do you mean? Lost contact? Our communication systems are not working. We cannot reach any other ship. We cannot even detect them on our sensors. It is as if they no longer exist. Vorath felt a chill run down his spine. That is impossible. 500 ships do not simply disappear. I know, Admiral. But our instruments show that we are alone. There is nothing within 10 light years of our position. Vorath stared at the view screen. The stars still burned. The nebulae still glowed. Everything looked normal, but something was very, very wrong. Keep trying to establish contact, he ordered, and increase power to our sensors. I want to know what is happening. The crew worked frantically at their stations. Minutes passed, then an hour, but the result was always the same. The eternal conquest was alone in the void, and then the speakers crackled with static. A voice emerged from the noise. It was human. Admiral Vorath, you were warned. You did not listen. Now you will learn why. The voice was calm, almost sad, and it sent a wave of fear through every Valkyrie on the bridge. Vorath stood tall and tried to keep his voice steady. Who are you? What have you done with my fleet? Your fleet is safe. For now. They are simply elsewhere. We moved them so that we could speak with you privately. You are the commander. You are the one who must understand. Understand what? There was a pause. When the voice spoke again, it was heavy with something that might have been sorrow. The truth, Admiral. The truth about what you are facing. The truth about why you should have turned back when you had the chance. The main view screen flickered. The stars disappeared. In their place, an image formed. It showed a field of debris, broken ships, scattered metal, frozen bodies drifting in the void. This is what remains of the Korvax Hive fleet, the voice said. 3,000 ships. Destroyed in less than 1 hour. We did not want to destroy them. We warned them, just as we warned you. But they did not listen. The image changed. More debris. Different ships. The 7th Dominion. 1,200 ships. They did not listen either. Another image. More wreckage. The Merchant Princes. 500 ships. They thought they could negotiate after they invaded. They were wrong. Vorath stared at the screen. His hearts were pounding. His hands were shaking. Why are you showing me this? He whispered. Because you still have a choice, Admiral. We have not destroyed your fleet. We have not killed your crew. We have simply separated you from them so that you can think clearly, without the pressure of your Emperor's expectations. The screen went dark. The stars returned. Turn back, the voice said. Take your fleet and go home. Tell your Emperor what you have seen. Tell him that the warnings are real. Tell him that Terran space is not to be entered. If you do this, you will live. Your crew will live. Your ships will be returned to you. Unharmed, Vorath closed his eyes. He thought of his family, his children, his grandchildren. He thought of the 300 years he had spent serving the Empire, the battles he had fought, the victories he had won. He thought of the debris fields he had just seen, the thousands of ships destroyed, the millions of lives ended, and he made his decision. No, he said. His voice was steady now. I am a Valkyrie Admiral. I do not run from threats. I do not abandon my mission because of fear. You may have destroyed other fleets, but you have never faced the Valkyrie Empire. We are not like the others. We will not be intimidated. There was a long silence. Then the voice spoke one final time. Very well, Admiral. We are sorry it has come to this. We truly are. But you have made your choice, and choices have consequences. The communication ended. The bridge was silent, and somewhere in the darkness of space, something began to move toward them. Admiral Vorath stood on the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, surrounded by silence. The communication with the mysterious human voice had ended minutes ago. but its words still hung in the air like smoke after a fire. "Admiral," Captain Mothra said, her voice trembling slightly. "Our sensors are coming back online. We are detecting the rest of the fleet." Vorath turned to look at her. "Where are they?" "They are everywhere, sir. Scattered across a region of space approximately 2 light hours wide. It is as if something picked them up and threw them in different directions." "Damage reports?" "None, sir. All ships report fully functional. No casualties, no equipment failures. They were simply moved." Vorath felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. The humans had taken his entire fleet and scattered it across space like toys thrown by a child. They had done it instantly, without any visible technology, without any warning, and they had not harmed a single ship. This was not a display of aggression. It was a display of power. The humans were showing him what they could do, and they were showing him that they had chosen not to do worse. "Recall the fleet," Vorath ordered. "All ships, return to formation. We continue the mission." Mothra hesitated. "Sir, perhaps we should—" "We continue the mission," Vorath repeated, his voice hard. "I will not return to the Emperor with nothing but fear and stories. We came here to conquer, and that is what we will do." It took 6 hours for the fleet to reassemble. 6 hours of ships slowly finding their way back to each other, of confused captains asking questions that Vorath could not answer, of growing fear spreading through the ranks like a disease. But finally, the 9th Conquest Fleet was whole again. 500 warships, arranged in perfect formation, ready for battle. "Set course for the nearest human world," Vorath commanded. "Maximum speed." The fleet moved deeper into Terran space. For the first few hours, nothing happened. Space was empty and quiet. The stars burned in the distance, indifferent to the warships passing through. There were no human patrols, no defense stations, no signs of civilization at all. It was strange. Every other species the Valkyrie had conquered had placed defensive forces at their borders. Satellites, mines, patrol ships, something to warn them of incoming threats. But the humans had nothing. Their border was just empty space. "They are confident," Mothra observed. "Or foolish, perhaps both," Vorath replied. But he did not believe his own words. After what he had seen, he could not dismiss the humans as fools. The fleet traveled for 3 days. They passed through system after system, but found nothing. No planets with human colonies, no space stations, no ships, just empty stars and dead rocks. "This makes no sense," Mothra said on the 3rd day. "Our intelligence indicated that the humans occupy 30 systems. Where are they?" Vorath studied the star maps. According to Valkyrie records, there should have been a human colony in this sector, a small settlement on a moon orbiting a gas giant. But when they arrived, they found nothing. The moon was barren. No buildings, no technology, no signs that anyone had ever lived there. "Could our intelligence be wrong?" Mothra asked. "Our intelligence is never wrong," Vorath said. But even as he spoke, he knew that was not true. The humans had detected his fleet through Valkyrie stealth. They had moved 500 ships without any visible technology. They were clearly far more advanced than anyone had believed. Perhaps they had moved their colonies too. Perhaps they had hidden their people somewhere the Valkyrie could not find them. Or perhaps they had never really been where the intelligence said they were in the first place. "Continue forward," Vorath ordered. "We will find them eventually." On the 4th day, they found something. But it was not what they expected. The sensors detected it first. A massive field of debris, spread across millions of kilometers of space. Broken metal, shattered hulls, frozen atmosphere venting from countless wounds in dead ships. "What is that?" Vorath asked. Mothra studied the readings, her face growing pale. "It appears to be the wreckage of a fleet, sir. A very large fleet. Human?" "No, sir." She looked up at him with fear in her eyes. "The design patterns are Korvax." Vorath felt his blood run cold. The Korvax, the insectoid species that had sent 3,000 ships to conquer the humans 200 years ago. The species that had been completely destroyed. "Take us closer," he ordered. The fleet approached the debris field slowly. As they got closer, the full scale of the destruction became clear. This was not just wreckage, it was a graveyard. Thousands of ships, each one torn apart as if by some impossibly powerful force. Vorath had seen many battles in his 300 years of service. He had seen planets bombed from orbit, space stations destroyed, fleets annihilated in brutal combat. But he had never seen anything like this. The Korvax ships had not been defeated in battle. They had been slaughtered. Analysis, he demanded. What weapons did this? The science officers worked frantically at their stations. Minutes passed. When they finally reported, their voices were shaking. We cannot determine the weapon type, Admiral. The damage patterns do not match any known technology. It appears that the ships were disassembled. At the molecular level, their matter was simply taken apart, piece by piece. That is impossible, Vorath said. Yes, sir. But that is what the evidence shows. Vorath stared at the debris field. 3,000 Korvax ships. Millions of Korvax warriors. All of them dead. All of them destroyed by a weapon that should not exist, and the humans had done this 200 years ago. What could they do now, with 2 more centuries of development? Sir, a sensor officer called out. We are detecting something in the center of the debris field. It appears to be a beacon. A beacon? Yes, sir. It is transmitting on Korvax frequencies. An automated message, repeating on a loop. Vorath thought for a moment. It could be a trap. But he needed to know more. He needed to understand what had happened here. Play the message, he ordered. The speakers crackled with static. Then a voice emerged, clicking, buzzing, the strange language of the Korvax hive. The translation software struggled for a moment, then produced words in Valkyrie. This is Queen Admiral Zixkrath of the Korvax hive fleet. We came to conquer the creatures called humans. We came with 3,000 ships and 20 million warriors. We thought we were powerful. We thought we were unstoppable. We were wrong. The voice paused. When it continued, there was something in it that Vorath had never heard from a Korvax before. Fear. They warned us. They told us to turn back. They said that if we entered their space with hostile intent, we would die. We did not believe them. We thought they were weak, like all the other species we had conquered. We thought their warnings were the desperate lies of a prey animal trying to scare away a predator. Another pause. The static crackled. We were wrong. They are not prey. They are not weak. They are something else. Something we do not have words for. We fired our weapons, and our weapons did nothing. They fired their weapons, and our ships came apart like paper in a fire. It took them less than 1 hour to destroy everything. 20 million warriors, 3,000 ships, gone. The Korvax voice broke. It was crying. The proud, fierce Korvax, the species that had never shown weakness, was crying. I am the only one left. They spared me so that I could record this message. They said that others would come, others who did not believe the warnings. They wanted those others to know the truth. So here it is. The truth. They are not lying. They are not bluffing. If you enter their space, you will die. Turn back. Turn back now, while you still can. Do not make our mistake. Do not let your pride destroy you like it destroyed us. The message ended. The bridge was silent. Vorath stood very still. His hearts were pounding so hard he could hear them in his ears. Around him, his officers looked at each other with wide eyes and pale faces. Admiral, Mothra whispered. Perhaps we should. No. Vorath's voice was firm, but even he could hear the doubt beneath it. One message from a dead queen does not change our mission. The Korvax were insects. They had no strategy, no tactics. They simply swarmed their enemies and hoped to overwhelm them with numbers. We are Valkyrie. We are different. But sir, the weapon that destroyed them, we do not know what destroyed them. This could all be a deception. The humans could have found this wreckage and planted the message to frighten us. They could be playing on our fears, hoping to win without a fight. Mothra did not look convinced. Neither did the other officers. But no one argued. In the Valkyrie Empire, you did not argue with your admiral. Continue forward, Vorath ordered, and increase sensor range to maximum. I want to know the moment anything approaches this fleet. The fleet moved past the debris field. As they left it behind, Vorath looked back at the floating wreckage. 20 million Korvax, 3,000 ships, all destroyed in less than an hour. What could destroy 3,000 ships in less than an hour? He pushed the thought away and focused on the mission. On the 6th day, they found another debris field. This one was smaller than the Korvax graveyard, but it was no less disturbing. The wreckage belonged to the Seventh Dominion, a collective of 3 species that had united to form a powerful military alliance. 1,200 ships, according to the records. All of them destroyed. There was another beacon. Another message. "We were warned," a translated voice said. "We did not listen. Now we are dead. Turn back. Turn back before it is too late." Vorath ordered the fleet to continue. On the 8th day, they found a 3rd debris field. The merchant princes of Kalos. 500 ships, another beacon, another warning. "They showed us what they could do," the recorded voice said. "They could have destroyed us from the moment we crossed their border. But they waited. They gave us chances to turn back. We were too proud to take them. Do not be like us. Do not let your pride kill you." The crew was growing restless. Vorath could see it in their eyes, hear it in their whispered conversations. They were afraid. They had seen too much death, too much destruction. They were beginning to believe the warnings. Even Vorath was beginning to believe, but he could not turn back. The Emperor had given him an order. To return without completing his mission would be treason. And treason meant death not just for him, but for his family, his children, his grandchildren. The Emperor did not tolerate failure, so he pressed on, deeper and deeper into Terran space. On the 10th day, something changed. "Admiral," the sensor officer reported, "we are detecting artificial structures ahead. It appears to be a planetary system with signs of habitation." Finally, after 10 days of empty space and death, they had found something. On screen, Vorath commanded. The main view screen flickered and showed a yellow star surrounded by 8 planets. The 3rd planet was clearly inhabited. Vorath could see the lights of cities on its night side, the geometric patterns of farms on its day side, the orbital stations circling it like jewels on a ring. "Analysis," he ordered. "The planet appears to be Earth, sir. The human homeworld. Population approximately 9 billion. Heavily industrialized. Numerous orbital defense platforms detected. Earth. The birthplace of humanity. The heart of their civilization. If they could capture Earth, the war would be over. The humans would have to surrender or watch their homeworld burn." "All ships," Vorath announced, "prepare for combat. We attack in 1 hour." The fleet moved into attack formation. Weapons charged, shields activated. 500 warships, armed with enough firepower to crack a planet, descended upon Earth like a swarm of predators, and then the lights on the Eternal Conquest flickered. "What now?" Vorath demanded. Malthra checked her instruments. Her face went white. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission. It is coming from everywhere." "What do you mean, everywhere?" "I mean every speaker on every ship in the fleet is receiving the same transmission simultaneously. It is not using any communication frequency we know. It is just appearing." A voice filled the bridge. It was human. It was calm, and it was infinitely tired. "Admiral Vorath, you have traveled far. You have seen the graves of those who came before you. You have heard their warnings, and yet you are still here." Vorath stood straight and spoke loudly, as if the invisible speaker could see his defiance. "I am a Valkyrie admiral. I do not run from shadows and stories. We know. We have been watching you since you crossed our border. We have been waiting, hoping that you would turn back, that you would be wiser than the others. I am not here for wisdom. I am here for conquest. Yes, we know that too." The voice paused. "Admiral, look at your sensors. Look at what is around you." Vorath looked at the sensor display. For a moment, he saw nothing unusual. Then the display updated, and his blood turned to ice. Ships, hundreds of ships, appearing from nowhere, surrounding the Valkyrie fleet. They were small, barely visible on sensors, but they were everywhere. "Where did they come from?" Malthra gasped. "They were always here," the voice said. "We have been with you since the moment you entered our space, watching, waiting, giving you every opportunity to turn back." Vorath stared at the sensor display. The human ships had appeared from empty space, as if they had simply materialized from nothing. His stealth technology, the finest in the galaxy, had not detected even a hint of their presence. "You have 40 ships," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We have 500. Your technology is impressive, but numbers matter, do they?" The voice sounded almost amused. "Admiral, we could have destroyed your fleet at any point in the past 10 days. We chose not to. We wanted to give you every chance. We wanted you to see the graves of those who came before. We wanted you to understand what you were facing. I understand that you are good at hiding. I understand that you have destroyed fleets before. But you have never faced the Valkyrie Empire. No, the voice agreed. We have not. But it makes no difference. We do not fight battles, Admiral. We do not wage wars. We simply protect our home. And we protect it absolutely. The human ships began to move. They flowed around the Valkyrie fleet like water around stones. Graceful and silent and impossibly fast. You have one last chance, the voice said. Turn around. Go home. Tell your emperor that Terran space is not to be entered. Do this, and you will live. Refuse, and you will die. There will be no battle. There will be no glory. There will only be death. Quick and complete and absolute. Vorath thought of his family, his children, his grandchildren. He thought of the debris fields he had passed, the millions of dead, the warnings that had gone unheeded. He thought of the Emperor, sitting on his throne made of bones, waiting for news of victory, and he made his choice. All ships, he commanded, open fire. 500 warships unleashed their weapons at once. Plasma beams, nuclear missiles, kinetic projectiles, enough firepower to destroy a dozen worlds. The void of space lit up like a sun as thousands of weapons streaked toward the tiny human vessels. And then something happened that Vorath could not explain. The weapons passed through the human ships. Every beam, every missile, every projectile, they all simply went through, as if the ships were made of nothing but light and shadow. What is happening? Mothra screamed. Why are our weapons not hitting them? The voice returned, calm and sad. We tried to warn you, Admiral. We tried to give you every chance. But you would not listen. None of them ever listen. The human ships began to glow. It was a soft light at first, barely visible. Then it grew brighter, brighter, until it was blinding. Terran Doctrine 7, the voice said. Any act of aggression within sovereign space is met with absolute response. There are no exceptions. There is no mercy. This is not cruelty, Admiral. This is survival. The light reached its peak, and 200 Valkyrie warships simply ceased to exist. There was no explosion, no fire, no debris. One moment they were there, solid and real. The next moment they were gone. Their matter converted directly into energy and scattered across the universe. Vorath watched in horror as nearly half his fleet disappeared in the span of a single heartbeat. What? What did you do? He whispered. We defended ourselves, the voice replied. As we always have. As we always will. Your weapons cannot harm us, Admiral, but our weapons can destroy you. This is not a fair fight. There are no fair fights when survival is at stake. Vorath looked at the remains of his fleet. 300 ships, where there had been 500. 300 ships facing an enemy they could not touch, could not harm, could not even understand. All ships, he said, his voice hollow and defeated. Retreat. Maximum speed. Get us out of here. The remains of the 9th Conquest Fleet turned and ran. Behind them, the human ships did not pursue. They simply watched, their soft light fading, as the Valkyrie fled into the darkness of space, and from every speaker on every ship, a final message played. Go home, Admiral. Tell your Emperor what happened here. Tell him that we do not want war. Tell him that we wish only to be left alone. But tell him also this. If he sends another fleet, we will destroy it. If he sends 100 fleets, we will destroy them all. Our territory is not negotiable. Our borders are not suggestions. And our warnings are not empty threats. They are promises, and we always keep our promises. The message ended, and Admiral Vorath, conqueror of 17 species, veteran of 100 battles, began the long journey home. He did not know how he would explain this to the Emperor. He only knew that everything had changed. The journey back to Valkyrie space took 12 days. 12 days of silence and fear. 12 days of crews staring at nothing, haunted by what they had witnessed. 12 days of Admiral Vorath sitting alone in his quarters, trying to understand what had happened. 200 ships. Gone in an instant. Not destroyed in the traditional sense, there was no wreckage. No bodies. No evidence that they had ever existed. They had simply been erased from reality, their matter transformed into energy and scattered across the cosmos. And the humans had done it without effort. Their ships had not even moved. They had simply glowed. And the Valkyrie had died. Vorath had fought for 300 years. He had seen every weapon the galaxy had to offer. He had watched planets burn and stars die, but he had never seen anything like this. The humans were not just advanced. They were something else entirely. Something that should not be possible. When the remains of the 9th Conquest Fleet finally crossed back into Valkyrie space, there was no celebration. There was no welcome. The other fleets simply watched in silence as 300 ships limped home, wounded and broken and defeated. Word spread quickly. The mighty Valkyrie Empire had sent 500 ships to conquer a small species. Only 300 had returned, and they had returned without firing a single successful shot. By the time Vorath reached the throne world, the entire empire knew of his failure. Emperor Malthaeus IX received him in the same throne room where the mission had begun. But this time, there was no laughter. The admirals stood in grim silence. The emperor's 4 eyes burned with cold fury. Vorath knelt before the throne. He felt old, older than he had ever felt in his 3 centuries of life. The weight of his failure pressed down on him like a mountain. "Report," the emperor commanded. His voice was ice. Vorath told him everything. The strange phenomena when they crossed the border, the debris fields of the Korvax, the 7th Dominion, the merchant princes, the warnings they had found, the messages from the dead, the human ships that had appeared from nowhere, the weapons that could not be blocked, could not be avoided, could not be understood. When he finished, the throne room was silent. Then Admiral Korath stepped forward. His living metal armor was dark red, the color of anger. "Lies," he spat. "This is impossible. No species could do what you describe. You have failed, Vorath, and now you seek to excuse your failure with fairy tales." Vorath looked at him with tired eyes. "I have served the Empire for 300 years. I have conquered 17 species. I have never lied to the Emperor, and I am not lying now. The humans are unlike anything we have ever faced." "Then you are weak," Korath snarled. "You saw a few tricks, a few lights in the sky, and you ran like a frightened child. Give me command of a fleet, and I will bring you these humans in chains." "You would die," Vorath said simply. "Just like the 200 ships I lost. Just like the Korvax and the Dominion and the merchant princes. The humans do not fight wars. They do not accept surrender. They simply kill anyone who enters their space with hostile intent. They have done it before, and they will do it again." "Enough!" The Emperor's voice cut through the argument like a blade. He stood from his throne and walked slowly down the steps toward Vorath. His movements were careful, deliberate, like a predator, circling its prey. "You lost 200 ships," Malthaeus said quietly. 200 of my finest warships, gone without a trace. You expect me to believe that this was done by a species that has been in space for only 3 centuries? I believe it because I saw it. My Emperor. And yet you have no proof. No recordings, no sensor data, no evidence of any kind. Vorath bowed his head. The recordings were corrupted. The sensor data was erased. It is as if the humans did not want us to bring back proof of what they could do. How convenient. Malthaeus circled around Vorath, studying him like a specimen under glass. The other admirals watched in silence, barely breathing. "I sent you to conquer a species that the galaxy calls dangerous," the Emperor said. "I sent you with 500 ships, more than enough to crush any resistance. And you come back to me with stories of impossible weapons and invincible enemies. You come back with excuses. They are not excuses, my Emperor. They are the truth." "The truth?" Malthaeus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The truth is that the Valkyrie Empire has never been defeated. The truth is that we have conquered 400 species and ruled this galaxy for 12,000 years. The truth is that we do not lose to children playing with toys." He stopped in front of Vorath and leaned down until their faces were inches apart. "The truth, Admiral, is that you have failed me, and failure has consequences." Vorath met the Emperor's gaze. He was not afraid. He had been afraid in Terran space, facing an enemy he could not comprehend. But here, facing the Emperor's anger, he felt only weariness. "Do what you must, my Emperor. I have told you the truth. What you do with it is your choice." For a long moment, Malthaeus stared at him. Then he straightened and turned away. "You will not be executed," he said. "Not yet. Your service has been long, and your record before this disaster was excellent. But you are relieved of command. You will spend the rest of your days in contemplation, thinking about your failure." Vorath bowed. "As you command, my Emperor." As for the humans, Malthius returned to his throne and sat down heavily. They have made a grave mistake. They have humiliated the Valkyrie Empire. They have killed our warriors. They have shown the galaxy that we can be defeated. His 4 eyes gleamed with cold determination. This cannot stand. Admiral Korath, you will assemble the Grand Armada, 2,000 ships, the largest fleet we have ever gathered. You will enter Terran space, and you will not leave until every human is dead or in chains. Korath bowed deeply, his armor shifting to bright gold. It will be my honor, my emperor. Vorath closed his eyes. He wanted to speak, to warn them, to tell them that they were sending 2,000 ships to their deaths, but he knew it would do no good. The emperor had made his decision. To argue now would only result in his own execution, so he remained silent and watched as the Valkyrie Empire sealed its fate. The Grand Armada took 3 months to assemble. 2,000 warships, drawn from every sector of the empire, dreadnoughts the size of small moons, carriers that held thousands of fighters, destroyers, cruisers, battleships, every class of vessel the Valkyrie had ever built. It was the largest fleet in the history of the empire, the largest fleet in the history of the galaxy. Nothing like it had ever been seen before. Admiral Korath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Glory, and smiled. This was the moment he had been waiting for his entire career, the chance to prove himself, to surpass all the admirals who had come before him, to become a legend. All ships, he announced over the fleet-wide channel. Today we begin the greatest conquest in the history of our species. We go to crush an enemy that has dared to challenge the might of the Valkyrie Empire. We go to avenge our fallen brothers and sisters. We go to show the galaxy that no one defies us and lives. 2,000 ships responded as one. For the Emperor, for the Empire. The Grand Armada entered Terran space. Unlike Vorath, Korath did not proceed cautiously. He did not send scouts ahead. He did not worry about strange phenomena or mysterious warnings. He simply charged forward at maximum speed, confident that nothing could stand against the might of his fleet. For the first 2 days, nothing happened. Space was empty. The stars were silent. There was no sign of the humans or their mysterious technology. You see, Korath said to his officers, Vorath was a coward. He saw shadows and ran from them. There is nothing here but empty space. On the 3rd day, they found the debris fields. Korath stared at the wreckage of the Korvax fleet, spread across millions of kilometers of space. 3,000 ships, torn apart and scattered like leaves in a storm. The sight should have given him pause. It should have made him reconsider. Instead, it made him angry. Insects, he spat. The Korvax were mindless animals. They had no tactics, no strategy, no discipline. Of course they were destroyed. But we are Valkyrie. We are different. He ordered the fleet to continue. On the 5th day, they reached Earth. The human homeworld floated in space, blue and green and beautiful. Billions of lives, concentrated on one small planet, the heart of Terran civilization. All ships, Korath commanded, take up bombardment positions. Prepare to fire on my command. 2,000 warships moved into position around Earth, their weapons charged, ready to rain fire down on the planet below. In minutes, they could turn that beautiful world into a burning hell. And then the sky changed. It started at the edges of the fleet, a shimmer in space, like heat rising from hot stone. The shimmer spread, growing brighter, until it surrounded the entire armada in a dome of soft light. What is that? Korath demanded. Before anyone could answer, the human ships appeared. They came from everywhere and nowhere. One moment space was empty. The next, there were hundreds of them, small and sleek and glowing with an inner light. They did not emerge from hyperspace. They did not decloak. They simply existed, as if they had always been there, and the Valkyrie were only now able to see them. Fire! Korath screamed. All ships, fire! 2,000 warships unleashed their weapons. Plasma beams, nuclear missiles, antimatter torpedoes, enough firepower to destroy 100 worlds. The void of space turned white with the fury of their assault, and every weapon missed. The beams bent away from their targets, curving impossibly through space. The missiles detonated harmlessly. Kilometers from the nearest human ship, the torpedoes simply vanished, disappearing as if they had never existed. That is impossible, Korath whispered. That is impossible. A voice filled the bridge. It was calm, quiet, and infinitely sad. Admiral Korath, we warned your predecessor. We warned your emperor. We have been warning your species for 12 days now, through every debris field you passed, through every message you found, and still you come. Still you attack. Why? Korath straightened his spine and spoke with all the authority he could muster. Because we are the Valkyrie Empire. We do not bow to threats. We do not run from enemies. We conquer, or we die. Then you have made your choice. The human ships began to glow brighter. The light pulsed, rhythmic and steady, like a heartbeat. We take no pleasure in this, the voice continued. We never have. We are not warriors. We are not conquerors. We are simply people who learned, long ago, that the universe is not kind to the weak. We learned that survival requires absolute commitment. We learned that borders must be defended absolutely, or they mean nothing at all. I do not want your philosophy, Korath snarled. I want your surrender. We cannot surrender. Surrender would mean trusting that you would honor your agreements, trusting that you would leave us in peace. But we have learned that trust is a luxury we cannot afford. The Korvax promised to spare our colonies if we surrendered. They lied. The 7th Dominion offered us membership in their alliance. When we accepted, they tried to enslave us. The merchant princes offered trade and friendship. They used it to spy on us, to learn our weaknesses. The voice paused. We do not trust anyone, Admiral. We do not negotiate with invaders. We do not accept surrender from fleets that have already fired upon our world. We simply defend ourselves. Absolutely, completely, without mercy. Korath felt something he had never felt before in battle. Fear. Real, deep, primal fear. Wait, he said. Perhaps we can... No. The time for talking ended when you fired your weapons. Now there is only the consequence. The glow from the human ships reached its peak, and the Grand Armada began to die. It was not like any battle Korath had ever seen. There were no explosions, no debris, no screaming hulls torn apart by enemy fire. Instead, ships simply ceased to exist. One moment they were there, solid, real, full of living beings. The next moment they were gone. Their matter transformed into pure energy and released into the void. 100 ships, 200, 300. Korath watched in horror as his mighty fleet melted away like snow in summer. He could hear the screams coming through the communications channels, captains pleading for help, crews praying to gods that did not answer, warriors dying without ever knowing what had killed them. 500 ships, 600, 700. Stop, Korath screamed. Stop, we surrender, we surrender. We do not accept surrender from invaders. Your fleet fired upon our world. Your emperor ignored every warning we gave. Your species has shown that it cannot be trusted to respect our borders. There is only one way to ensure our safety. 1,000 ships, 1,100, 1,200. The bridge of the eternal glory began to flicker. Korath felt a strange sensation, like his body was dissolving, piece by piece, atom by atom. Please, he whispered. Please, we are sorry, the voice said, and it sounded like it meant it. We truly are. The light consumed him. When it was over, the Grand Armada was gone. 2,000 ships, millions of warriors, the largest fleet in the history of the galaxy. All of them erased in less than 1 hour. The human ships remained for a moment, floating in space around Earth. Their glow faded, their forms becoming dark and still. Then, one by one, they vanished, returning to wherever they had come from. Space was empty again, silent, peaceful, as if nothing had happened at all. On the Valkyrie throne world, Emperor Malthus IX waited for news of victory. Hours passed, then days. No messages came, no reports, no signals of any kind. On the 5th day, a single transmission arrived from Terran space. It was not audio or video. It was simply text, displayed on every screen in the Imperial Palace. The Grand Armada has been destroyed. All ships, all crews, none survived. We did not want this. We warned you. We warned Admiral Vorath. We warned Admiral Korath. You did not listen. Now your fleet is gone. We have protected our home, as we always have, as we always will. Do not send another fleet. If you do, it will share the same fate. This is our final warning. We do not wish to destroy your empire. We do not wish to conquer your worlds. We wish only to be left alone. Respect our borders, and there will be peace. Violate them again, and there will be consequences. The choice is yours. Malthus read the message. Then he read it again. Then he threw his datapad across the room and screamed in rage. 2,000 ships, the largest fleet in history, gone, destroyed by a species that had been in space for barely 3 centuries. It was impossible. It was unthinkable. It was real. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Valkyrie Empire had met an enemy it could not defeat, an enemy it could not understand, an enemy that did not want to conquer them, did not want to negotiate with them, did not want anything from them except to be left alone, and Malthus did not know what to do. He could send another fleet. He could send 10 more fleets. But if the humans could destroy 2,000 ships in an hour, what would stop them from destroying 10,000? Or 100,000? He could try to negotiate. But the humans had said they did not negotiate with invaders. They did not trust anyone. They simply protected their borders, absolutely, and without mercy. He could leave them alone. Except that Terran space was forbidden, that the humans were not to be challenged, that the mighty Valkyrie Empire had finally met its match. But his pride would not allow that. His pride demanded vengeance. His pride demanded that the humans be punished for their arrogance, their defiance, their humiliation of the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known. So he sat on his throne, surrounded by his admirals and his advisors, and tried to find a way forward. And somewhere in the depths of Terran space, humanity waited. They did not celebrate their victory. They did not gloat over their fallen enemies. They simply watched and waited and hoped that this time finally, after so many others, the lesson would be learned. They hoped, but they did not expect, because humanity had learned, long ago, that hope was not enough. Only strength was enough. Only the absolute certainty that any attack would be met with complete destruction. They had built that certainty over 300 years of fear and determination. They had sacrificed everything to achieve it, their innocence, their trust, their belief in the goodness of other species, and they would never, ever let it go. Not for pride, not for peace, not for anything, because in the cold equations of the universe, survival was the only thing that mattered, and humanity intended to survive. The weeks that followed the destruction of the Grand Armada were the darkest in the history of the Valkyrie Empire. News of the defeat spread through the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Species that had lived under Valkyrie rule for centuries began to whisper in the shadows. Rebellions sparked on a dozen worlds. Trade partners suddenly found reasons to renegotiate their agreements. The empire that had seemed invincible for 12,000 years suddenly looked weak. Emperor Malthus IX barely slept. He spent his days in the throne room, receiving reports of uprisings and betrayals, issuing orders that seemed increasingly desperate. His 4 eyes, once bright with power and confidence, now looked hollow and exhausted. The admirals were no help. They argued constantly, blaming each other for the disaster, proposing plans that ranged from foolish to insane. Some wanted to send another fleet, larger than before. Others wanted to use their planet-destroying weapons to strike at Earth from a distance. A few even suggested surrender, though they said it quietly, and never in the Emperor's presence. Former Admiral Vorath watched it all from his quarters. He had been stripped of his command but not his access to information. He saw the reports, heard the arguments, understood the fear that was slowly consuming the Empire, and he knew that none of their plans would work. The humans had shown that they could destroy any fleet the Valkyrie sent. They had shown that distance was no protection. Their technology allowed them to appear anywhere, at any time, without warning. They had shown that conventional weapons were useless against them, that shields and armor and stealth meant nothing. The only option was peace. But Malthus was too proud to accept that. On the 42nd day after the destruction of the Grand Armada, something happened that no one expected. Vorath was sitting in his quarters, reading reports of yet another rebellion in the outer territories, when the air in front of him suddenly changed. It shimmered, like heat rising from hot metal. And then a figure appeared where there had been nothing before. It was a human. She was small, barely reaching Vorath's shoulder. Her skin was dark brown, her hair cut short and gray. She wore a simple black uniform with no decorations, no medals, no signs of rank. Her eyes were calm and steady, showing no fear, no aggression, no emotion at all. Vorath jumped to his feet, reaching for a weapon he no longer carried. "How did you get in here?" he demanded. The same way we do everything, the woman replied. Her voice was quiet, almost gentle. We simply did it. She looked around his quarters with mild curiosity. You must be Admiral Vorath, the one who came back, the one who tried to warn them. I am no longer an admiral. I have been stripped of my rank. Yes, because you told the truth, and the truth was not what your emperor wanted to hear. She walked to a chair and sat down without being invited. My name is Mira Cole. I am an executor of the Terran Confederacy. An executor? Vorath remained standing, tense and alert. What is that? It is a title given to those who carry out the final decisions of our government. We do not negotiate. We do not threaten. We simply explain the consequences of certain choices, and then we ensure those consequences are carried out. You are here to explain consequences. I am here to offer your species one last chance. Vorath stared at her. The idea that this small woman could simply appear in the heart of the Valkyrie Empire, in one of the most heavily guarded buildings in the galaxy, was impossible. And yet here she was. How did you do that? He asked. How did you get past our security? How did you appear from nothing? Well, our technology is different from yours, Mira said simply. We do not travel through space. We fold it. We do not hide from sensors. We exist outside them. These are not secrets. We have tried to explain them to many species. They rarely understand. I want to understand, Mira smiled slightly. It was a sad smile, without any joy. Perhaps you do. You are different from the others who have come to our space. You saw what we could do, and you chose to retreat. That takes a kind of courage that most of your admirals do not possess. Vorath sat down slowly, facing her across his small table. The Grand Armada. You destroyed them all? Yes. 2,000 ships. Millions of warriors. Gone in an hour. 47 minutes. Actually. Mira's voice held no pride, no satisfaction. We do not enjoy killing. We never have. But we will not hesitate to do it when our survival is at stake. Why? What happened to make you this way? Mira was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was distant, as if she were remembering something painful. 300 years ago, humanity was very different. We were idealistic, hopeful. We believed that the universe was full of wonder, and that other species would be our friends. When we first traveled to the stars, we went with open hands and peaceful intentions. She paused. The first species we met were the Korvax. Do you know what they did when they found us? No. They attacked without warning. They destroyed our first colony ship, 10,000 people, including the children who were supposed to grow up on a new world. We tried to surrender. They did not accept surrender. They just kept killing. It took us 12 years to develop weapons that could stop them. By then, we had lost 2 million people. Vorath was silent. He had known the Korvax were aggressive, but he had not known this. After the Korvax, we tried again. We met the 7th Dominion, and they offered us friendship. We accepted. They used our trust to learn our weaknesses, and then they attacked. It took us 8 years to defeat them. Another 1 million dead. Mira's voice remained calm, but Vorath could see the pain in her eyes. The merchant princes, the silver concordat, the hegemony of stars, species after species, they all did the same thing. They saw us as weak. They saw our territory as something to be taken. They saw our people as resources to be exploited. And so you stopped trusting, Vorath said quietly. We stopped trusting. We stopped hoping. We stopped believing that anyone would leave us alone. We realized that the universe is not kind, and that kindness is not rewarded. We realized that the only way to survive was to make ourselves so dangerous that no one would dare attack us. Your technology, your weapons, you developed them for defense. Yes. Every advancement, every discovery, every breakthrough, we put it into our defenses. We made our borders absolute. We made our territory inviolable. We made it so that anyone who attacked us would be destroyed, completely and without mercy. She leaned forward, her eyes meeting Vorath's. We did not want this. We wanted to be part of the galactic community. We wanted to trade, to share knowledge, to learn from other species. But we learned that the galaxy would not let us be what we wanted to be. It would only let us be what we needed to be. Survivors. Vorath thought about everything she had said. It made a terrible kind of sense. The humans were not aggressive. They were not conquerors. They were simply survivors, forged by centuries of betrayal and war into something hard and cold and indestructible. You said you came to offer us one last chance, he said finally. What does that mean? I came to speak to your emperor, to explain to him what we explained to you, to give him the choice that we gave Admiral Korath before he decided to fire on our world. Korath was given a choice? Everyone is given a choice. We do not want to destroy. We only want to be left alone. But your emperor must understand if he sends another fleet, we will not just destroy it. We will destroy his ability to send fleets at all. Vorath felt a chill run through him. What do you mean? Your empire has been humiliated. Species that you conquered are beginning to rebel. Your military has lost 2,000 ships and the soldiers that crewed them. You are weaker now than you have been in centuries. She paused. If your emperor accepts peace, true peace, with a formal acknowledgement of Terran sovereignty, we will take no further action. Your empire will survive. It will face challenges, but it will survive. And if he does not accept, then we will ensure that the Valkyrie Empire can never threaten us again. We will not conquer you. We will not enslave you. We will simply remove your ability to wage war. Every military installation, every weapons factory, every warship destroyed. Your civilians will be unharmed. Your worlds will remain yours. But your military will cease to exist. Vorath stared at her. That is impossible. We have installations across half the galaxy. Millions of facilities. Billions of soldiers. We are aware. You cannot possibly destroy all of that. We can. Mira's voice was flat, certain, without any doubt. We have been studying your empire since your first fleet crossed our border. We know where every base is. We know where every ship is stationed. We know the location of every weapons factory, every training academy, every fuel depot. We have had months to prepare. She stood up. I am going to speak to your emperor now. I am going to give him the same information I have given you. I am going to offer him peace, genuine peace, with no conditions except that he respects our borders. If he is wise, he will accept. And if he is not wise, then you should say goodbye to your military, because by this time tomorrow, it will no longer exist. She walked toward the door. Wait, Vorath said. Let me come with you. Let me speak to the Emperor first. Perhaps I can convince him to listen. Mira looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Very well. Perhaps he will trust your words more than mine. Lead the way. The throne room was empty when they arrived. The admirals were in their offices, arguing about strategy. The guards had been dismissed for the night. Only the Emperor remained, sitting alone on his throne, staring at nothing. He looked up when Vorath entered. His four eyes widened in surprise. Vorath, what are you doing here? You are not permitted in the throne room. My Emperor, I bring an urgent message. We have a visitor. Malthius noticed Mira for the first time, his face twisted with rage. A human? Here? In my palace? He surged to his feet. Guards, guards. Your guards cannot hear you, Mira said calmly. They are asleep. They will wake up in an hour, unharmed, with no memory of what happened. We did not come to hurt anyone. We came to talk. Malthius glared at her. Talk? You destroyed 2,000 of my ships? And you want to talk? Yes, because we do not want to destroy any more. The Emperor laughed bitterly. What more could you possibly destroy? You have taken everything from me. No, Mira said. We have taken your fleets. Your empire remains. Your worlds remain. Your people remain. But that could change. Malthius stared at her. Are you threatening me? I am explaining reality. You have a choice before you, Emperor Malthius. You can accept that Terran space is forbidden, acknowledge our sovereignty, and live in peace. Or you can continue to oppose us, and watch as everything you have built is taken away. You cannot take my empire. You have only 30 systems. We have 400,000. Systems do not matter. Ships do not matter. Numbers do not matter. Only capability matters, and we are capable of things you cannot imagine. Vorath stepped forward. My Emperor, please listen to her. I have seen what they can do. They are not bluffing. They are not threatening. They are simply stating what will happen. You expect me to surrender? Malthius's voice was rising. The Emperor of the Valkyrie. Surrender to a species of insects? Never. I would rather die. Your death would not stop us, Mira said. Another emperor would take your place, and we would make them the same offer. If they refused, we would make it to the next, and the next, until someone accepted. We are patient. We have learned to be patient. Malthus was shaking with rage. I will not be lectured by a primitive. I will not be threatened in my own palace. Guards, kill this creature. Nothing happened. The throne room remained silent. Your guards cannot help you, Mira reminded him. And even if they could not harm me. Our personal shields are as absolute as our planetary ones. Your weapons cannot touch us. She took a step closer to the throne. Emperor Malthus, I understand your pride. I understand your anger. Your species has ruled this galaxy for 12,000 years. You have never known defeat. You have never known fear. And now you are facing both, and you do not know how to respond. Her voice softened, becoming almost kind. But pride is not worth dying for. It is not worth watching your empire crumble. It is not worth seeing everything your ancestors built destroyed, because you could not accept that there is something in the universe more powerful than you. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. She placed it on the table in front of the throne. This is a communication device. It will allow you to contact us directly, without going through any channels that could be monitored or intercepted. When you are ready to discuss peace, use it. We will answer. She turned to leave. Wait, Malthus said. His voice was quieter now, uncertain. If I refuse, what exactly will you do? Mira stopped. She did not turn around. We will appear over every military installation in your empire simultaneously. Every shipyard, every weapons factory, every training academy. And we will destroy them. All of them. In a single hour. That is not possible. It is. We have done it before. To smaller empires. We have never had to do it on this scale. But we are prepared. How many ships would that require? We have enough. Malthus was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke again, and his voice was smaller than Vorath had ever heard it. How many ships do you have? Mira finally turned to face him. Her expression was unreadable. Emperor Malthus, we have 30 systems. You have 400,000. But we have been preparing for war for 300 years. We have been building, developing, advancing. We have poured everything we have into defense. Everything. She paused. Our fleet is not measured in thousands of ships. It is not measured in hundreds of thousands. We have never told anyone the true size of our military, because we never wanted anyone to know. We wanted to seem small, weak, harmless. We wanted to be underestimated, because underestimation is a weapon as powerful as any gun. Her eyes met Malthus's, and for the first time, Vorath saw something like fire in them. But I will tell you this, Emperor. If every ship in your empire attacked us at once, you would not even slow us down. Your entire military is nothing to us. It is a distraction, an annoyance, something to be dealt with and forgotten. She walked toward the exit. Use the communicator. Contact us when you are ready to discuss peace. You have one day. She reached the door and paused. And Emperor, choose wisely. Your civilization depends on it. She stepped through the door and vanished, leaving Vorath and the Emperor alone in the silent throne room. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then Malthus picked up the communication device and stared at it. His 4 eyes filled with something Vorath had never seen in them before. Fear. My Emperor, Vorath said quietly. What will you do? Malthus did not answer. He just kept staring at the device, as if it held all the answers to questions he did not want to ask. And in the silence of the throne room, the future of the Valkyrie Empire hung in the balance. Emperor Malthus IX did not sleep that night. He sat alone in his chambers, holding the communication device the human had left behind, thinking about everything he had heard. His pride told him to fight. His pride told him that surrender was weakness, that the Valkyrie Empire had never bowed to anyone, that he would be remembered as the emperor who destroyed the greatest civilization in history. But another voice spoke to him too. A quieter voice. One he had not listened to in centuries. The voice of reason. 2,000 ships. Gone in less than an hour. The humans had destroyed them without effort, without casualties, without even seeming to try. And they had offered peace afterward. They had not invaded. They had not demanded territory or tribute. They had simply asked to be left alone. What kind of enemy did that? He thought about what the human woman had said. About their history. about the species that had betrayed them, attacked them, tried to destroy them. He thought about how they had responded not with conquest, but with defense, absolute, uncompromising defense. They did not want to rule the galaxy. They did not want power or glory. They wanted only to survive. In a strange way, Malthus understood them. The Valkyrie had built their empire the same way. Thousands of years ago, they had been attacked by stronger species, had fought for their survival, had become ruthless because ruthlessness was what kept them alive. The humans were simply doing the same thing. They were just better at it. As the first light of dawn crept through his windows, Malthus made his decision. He would not accept peace. It was not a rational decision. He knew that. The human woman had been clear about what would happen if he refused. But rationality had never been what drove emperors. Pride drove them. Legacy drove them. The need to be remembered as strong, as powerful, as unconquered. If he accepted peace, history would remember him as the emperor who surrendered to a lesser species, as the emperor who bowed when he should have fought. His ancestors would look down from whatever afterlife awaited them and see a coward. He could not bear that. So when the deadline passed, when the one day the humans had given him expired, he did nothing. He did not use the communicator. He did not reach out for peace. He simply waited, hoping against hope that the humans were bluffing, that their threats were empty, that somehow everything would work out. The response came exactly 1 hour after the deadline. It started in the outer territories. A military base on the edge of Valkyrie space suddenly went silent. Communications cut off. Sensors stopped transmitting. And when patrol ships were sent to investigate, they found nothing. The base was gone. Not destroyed, there was no debris, no wreckage, no evidence that anything had happened. The base was simply not there anymore. The ground where it had stood was smooth and untouched, as if nothing had ever been built there. Reports started flooding in from across the empire. Shipyards disappearing, weapons factories vanishing, training academies gone without a trace. One by one, every military installation in the Valkyrie Empire was erased from existence. The admirals panicked. They ordered ships to intercept the attackers, to fight back, to do something. But there was nothing to fight. The human ships did not appear on sensors. They did not decloak or emerge from hyperspace. They simply were, for a fraction of a second, long enough to do their work. And then they were gone. In the throne room, Malthus watched the reports in stunned silence. A holographic map showed the Empire in real time, with red markers indicating military losses. As he watched, more and more markers appeared, spreading across the galaxy like a plague. "My Emperor," Admiral Zorth said, the old admiral who had warned against this war from the beginning. "We must surrender. We must contact them and accept their terms." "It is too late for that," another admiral argued. "They will not stop now. They will not show mercy. We have to try. If we do not surrender, we will lose everything." The admirals argued while Malthus remained silent. He was watching the map, watching the red markers multiply, watching his empire's military power disappear before his eyes. And then something new appeared on the map. A blue marker, in the throne room itself. The air shimmered. A figure appeared. It was the human woman again, Mira Cole. She stood in the center of the throne room, surrounded by terrified admirals, looking exactly as calm as she had the night before. "Emperor Malthus," she said, "you did not use the communicator." "I did not." "Why?" Malthus stood from his throne. He was tired, so tired, but his pride would not let him show weakness, even now. "Because I am the Emperor of the Valkyrie. I do not surrender. I do not bow. I would rather watch my empire burn than accept peace from creatures like you." Mira studied him for a long moment. Her eyes were sad. "I was afraid you would say that." She turned to face the admirals, who were backing away from her in fear. "Your emperor has chosen pride over survival. He has chosen his legacy over your lives. But I did not come here to punish you for his decisions. I came to give you a choice of your own." She raised her hand, and the holographic map changed. It no longer showed military losses. Instead, it showed something else, the locations of every civilian population center in the empire. Billions of dots, representing trillions of lives. "These are your people," Mira said. "Your families, your children. We could destroy them as easily as we destroyed your military installations. We could wipe your species from existence in a single day. The admirals stared at the map in horror. But we will not. Because we are not monsters. Because we do not kill innocents for the crimes of their leaders. Because we remember what it was like to be afraid, to be helpless, to be at the mercy of those more powerful than us. She lowered her hand, and the map disappeared. Your military is gone. Your ability to wage war has been destroyed. But your people remain. Your worlds remain. Your civilization remains. You will have to rebuild, to change, to find a new way of existing in this galaxy. But you will survive. She turned back to Malthius. This is not what we wanted. We did not want to destroy your military. We did not want to humble your empire. We wanted only to be left alone. But you would not allow that. None of them ever allow that. She walked toward the throne, and Malthius found himself backing away. For the first time in his life, he was afraid of something smaller than himself. I have a message for you, Emperor, and for everyone watching, because I know that this conversation is being recorded, that it will be transmitted across the galaxy, that species everywhere will see what happened here today. She stopped at the base of the throne and looked up at him. We are not conquerors. We are not saviors. We are not gods. We are simply people who want to live in peace. Our territory is small. Our ambitions are smaller. We do not want your worlds, your resources, your worship. We want only to exist, quietly, in our corner of the galaxy. Her voice grew harder. But our territory is not negotiable. Our borders are not suggestions. Our warnings are not empty threats. Any species that enters our space with hostile intent will be destroyed. Completely. Without mercy. Without exception. She turned to address the room, her voice carrying to every corner. We have destroyed fleets before. We have destroyed empires before. We take no pleasure in it. We gain nothing from it except the knowledge that our people are safe for another generation. But we will never stop. We will never hesitate. We will never show weakness. She looked at the admirals, one by one. Go home. Rebuild your lives. Raise your children. Find meaning in something other than conquest. The galaxy is vast, and there is room for everyone, including you. But leave us alone. Respect our borders, and you will have nothing to fear from us. She walked toward the exit, then paused. And to all the other species watching this, the ones who have wondered about the humans, who have heard rumors and stories, who have thought about testing our defenses, learn from the Valkyrie, learn from the Korvax and the Seventh Dominion, and all the others who came before them. The warnings are real. The consequences are absolute. Leave us alone. She reached the door. Goodbye, Emperor Malthius. I hope, for your people's sake, that you learn to live without war, because you will not have the option of waging it again. Not for a very long time. She stepped through the door and vanished, leaving the Valkyrie to face the ruins of everything they had built. The days that followed were chaos. Without a military, the Valkyrie Empire could not maintain control over its conquered territories. One by one, species that had lived under Valkyrie rule for centuries declared independence. Some left peacefully, others with violence. The empire that had dominated half the galaxy for 12,000 years shattered like glass. Emperor Malthius IX was deposed 3 weeks after the human visitation. His own advisors turned against him, blaming him for the catastrophe. He was not executed, that would have been too kind. He was exiled, sent to a small moon on the edge of what remained of Valkyrie space, to live out his days in isolation and shame. Former Admiral Vorath watched it all from his quarters. He had expected to feel satisfaction after all. He had warned them, and they had not listened. But he felt only sadness. Sadness for the warriors who had died in the Grand Armada. Sadness for the empire that had raised him. Sadness for a way of life that would never return. A message arrived for him, 3 months after the fall. It was from the humans. Admiral Vorath. We understand you warned your emperor. We understand you counseled peace. We believe you are a person of honor, rare among your species. If you ever wish to visit Terran space peacefully, as a guest, not as an invader, you would be welcome. We have much to learn from each other, and perhaps someday we can be allies instead of enemies. The invitation stands, for as long as you live. Vorath read the message several times. Then he saved it, carefully, in a place where it would not be lost. He did not know if he would ever accept the invitation. The wounds were still too fresh, the memories too painful, but the offer gave him something he had not felt in a long time: hope. 50 years passed. The Valkyrie were no longer an empire. They were a collection of independent worlds, trading and cooperating but no longer unified under a single ruler. The military that had once conquered 400 species was gone, replaced by small defense forces barely capable of protecting individual systems. But they survived. They rebuilt. They learned to exist without conquest, without domination, without the constant need for expansion. It was not easy. There were years of hardship, years of adjustment, years of learning new ways to live. But they managed, and through it all, the humans remained in their 30 systems, quiet and isolated, exactly as they had always been. The Galactic Council updated its maps. Terran space was marked with a simple warning: restricted zone. No entry without explicit consent. Young species, newly emerged into the galaxy, would sometimes ask about the marking. What was Terran space? Who were the humans? Why was their territory forbidden? The elder races would tell them stories. Stories of fleets that had entered and never returned. Stories of empires that had challenged the humans and been humbled. Stories of warnings given and ignored. Of consequences delivered without mercy. Are they evil? The young species would ask. Are they monsters? No, the elders would reply. They are not evil. They are not monsters. They are simply people who learned that the universe does not reward kindness. They are people who built walls around their home and defended those walls absolutely. But why? Why do they stay alone? Why do they not join the rest of the galaxy? Because they tried that once. They offered friendship, and they were betrayed. They offered peace, and they were attacked. They learned that trust is a luxury they cannot afford. They learned that the only safety is strength, and the only peace is the peace that comes from being too dangerous to challenge. The young species would think about this. Some of them would understand, others would not, and occasionally, one of them would decide to test the warnings, to send a ship into Terran space, just to see what would happen. Those ships never returned. In the depths of Terran space, humanity watched and waited. They monitored the galaxy, tracked the movements of fleets and empires, recorded the rise and fall of civilizations. They did not interfere. They did not take sides. They simply watched, and they maintained their defenses. New technologies were developed, integrated, improved. New ships were built, tested, deployed. The fleet that had destroyed the Grand Armada grew larger, more powerful, more capable. Not because the humans wanted war, but because they knew that war was always possible. 300 years of peace had followed the Valkyrie incident. 300 years without a major attack on Terran space. The warnings had worked. The galaxy had learned. But the humans did not allow themselves to relax. They remembered the Korvax, who had attacked without warning. They remembered the Seventh Dominion, who had betrayed their trust. They remembered every species that had forced them to fight, forced them to kill, forced them to become what they were. They remembered, and they prepared. Because the universe was not kind. The universe did not reward hope or trust or good intentions. The universe rewarded only strength, and humanity intended to be strong. Forever. In a small house on a quiet street on Earth, an old woman sat by a window, watching the sunset. Her name was Mira Cole, and she had once been an executor of the Terran Confederacy. She had delivered warnings to emperors and admirals. She had watched empires fall because they would not listen. Now she was retired, her work done, her battles fought. She spent her days in peace, reading books and tending her garden and watching the sky turn orange and pink as the sun set over the mountains. A young child, her great-granddaughter, came to sit beside her. "Grandma Mira," the child said. "Tell me a story." Mira smiled. "What kind of story?" "Tell me about the Valkyrie." "About the war." Mira looked at the sunset for a long moment. Then she turned to the child. "There was no war," she said. "Wars have battles and victories and defeats. What happened with the Valkyrie was not a war. It was a lesson." "What kind of lesson?" "A lesson about pride. About the importance of listening, about what happens when people refuse to accept that they are not the most powerful thing in the universe." The child thought about this. "Were we the most powerful?" "No," Mira said. "We were not the most powerful. We were just the most careful, the most prepared, the most willing to do what was necessary to protect our home. Is that why they don't attack us anymore? That is part of it. But the real reason is simpler than that." "What is it?" Mira smiled and put her arm around the child. "They learned that some things are not worth fighting for. that pride and glory and conquest are empty if they cost you everything. They learned that the universe is big enough for everyone, as long as everyone respects each other's right to exist. She looked up at the sky, where the first stars were beginning to appear. We tried to teach them that lesson peacefully. We warned them. We explained. We gave them every chance to turn back. Most of them did not listen. They had to learn the hard way. But they learned? Yes. Eventually they learned. The child was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "Grandma, do you think we will ever leave our space? Ever explore the rest of the galaxy?" Mira considered the question. It was one she had thought about many times, over many years. "Maybe someday," she said finally, "when the galaxy is different, when trust is possible, when we do not have to be afraid. When will that be? I do not know. Perhaps never. Perhaps tomorrow. The future is uncertain." She squeezed the child gently. "But for now, we have our home. We have our people. We have peace. That is enough." The sun finished setting, and darkness fell over the mountains. Above them, the stars burned bright and cold, countless worlds spinning through the void. Somewhere out there, species were being born and dying. Empires were rising and falling. Histories were being written that would last for millennia. And in their small corner of the galaxy, humanity remained. Quiet, watchful, ready. They did not seek glory. They did not desire conquest. They wanted only to live, to grow, to find meaning in the vast emptiness of space. But they would never forget the lessons they had learned. The lessons written in blood and fire and the wreckage of 1,000 ships. Trust no one. Defend everything. And never, ever, let down your guard. Because the universe was not kind, but humanity intended to survive it anyway.